What is the difference between a felony and a misdemeanor in California, and what can that mean for you? First, a felony charge is a charge where you could end up going to state prison. State prison is different than county jail, in that county jail is for local custody time. Sometimes misdemeanors, low-level felonies, people end up in county jail, and county jail is the place that people stay while their case is pending. And they could go from county jail to state prison if they're convicted of a crime. In addition to this, you can also face other issues that are not just related to custody time if you have a criminal case, if it's a felony or even a misdemeanor charge. It could impact your rights. For example, if you're convicted of a domestic violence charge, you could be sentenced to state prison, to county jail, but a collateral issue is that you lose your gun rights, and you lose your gun rights for life. It means if you're ever convicted of a domestic violence charge, you can never own or possess a firearm for the rest of your life. And if you do, it's a new criminal charge. In addition to that, you have other rights that you can lose, such as voting rights, your ability to travel while you're on probation. And if, for example, you have to register as a sex offender, you also have issues traveling to other countries. And although it's a California crime and California case, other states and other countries may have issues with people who are on felony probation, convicted of certain felonies, or in addition to that, sex offenders, to not allow them into their country or into their state. In addition, you can also have issues with housing as well as the job market. For example, if you're convicted of certain crimes, felonies, or misdemeanors, you sometimes on job applications have to list out what you've been convicted of. And some places, if you're convicted of a felony, will not even consider you for that job. Felonies can carry with you for the rest of your life. In addition to that, you also have housing issues. You could have issues getting rent, you getting into an apartment, getting into a facility if you're a convicted felon or a registered sex offender. There could be restrictions and rules with the different counties or cities that you move to for someone who's a felon or someone who is a convicted sex offender, as an example. These could factor into your ability to have a choice of where you want to live or what you want to do for a living because of this criminal record that you've obtained. In California, criminal charges can either be felonies, misdemeanors, or infractions. An infraction will be something like a traffic ticket, texting while driving, speeding, things like that. Those are infractions. They don't send you to jail, but they could affect your driver's license, give you points on your driver's license, as well as get your license suspended if you obtain too many points. The more serious charges are the misdemeanor and felony charges. Those are more known as criminal charges. And whether a charge is a felony or a misdemeanor depends on several factors. Some charges are just felonies, like, for example, murder or rape or any kind of sex crime against a child. Most often those charges are just straight felonies, meaning that if you're charged with that crime, there is no equivalent on the misdemeanor side to reduce that charge to. It's a felony forever. Other charges can be a felony or a misdemeanor. An example of this would be domestic violence. Domestic violence charge, depending on how serious the incident was, like, for example, if someone went to the hospital, if there's bruising, if there's blood, if someone had to get stitches, in that circumstance, that charge could be a felony. But if it's something where the injuries are slight, maybe some bruising, or maybe the other party, the victim, does not want to participate, maybe it becomes something where it's a misdemeanor charge. This is what's known as a wobbler. A wobbler is something that can be a felony or a misdemeanor depending on the specific facts of the case, as well as your criminal history and criminal background. In addition to felony and misdemeanor crimes in California, there also are federal crimes that don't necessarily apply to someone who's in California because they apply to everybody in the entire United States. Federal law applies to all people. Now, sometimes people are confused between felonies, misdemeanors, and federal crimes and seeing what applies to them and what applies to their specific circumstance. Now, I recently saw a blog post where someone was talking about some person that was a sex offender that was being released into their area, and they got a call from a local sheriff telling them that. What they said was that this person was being federally released based on something that Governor Gavin Newsom had signed into law to get that person out of custody. It was very much a propaganda post that was talking about issues with Governor Newsom. Now, the problem with this post is it adds to some of the confusion that many people have. Now, in that specific circumstance, the blog writer was wrong because even if Gavin Newsom released some kind of law that allowed people to be released from custody, he has no control over federal law. Federal law is done by the federal government, so that at this time would be President Trump. So if anything is being released, or any person is being released federally, they're being done through laws from the federal government, not something from Governor Newsom or anything in California. The difference then is that a felony or misdemeanor is a state crime. A federal crime happens to be applying to the federal government and the federal government's rules and laws that they create. So they're not the same as a misdemeanor or a felony in California, and they're not governed by the governor in California, as the governor of California cannot control the federal government.